You've got to be kidding me, Zax 427 chittered, his antennae twitching in disbelief as he stared at the datapad. They want us to include humans in the Galactic Academy's physical education program. His colleague, Vreen39, let out a warbling laugh that sounded like a kazoo being strangled by a rubber chicken. Oh, this is going to be hilarious. Have you ever seen a human try to move? They're like, what's that earth creature? A sloth, but less graceful. The two Zarlaxian physical education instructors were huddled in their office, a room that looked like it had been decorated by a tornado with a penchant for neon and an unhealthy obsession with motivational posters featuring tentacled beings striking triumphant poses. But there from a death world, Zax protested, his exoskeleton changing colors rapidly in agitation. They'll get squished like a Flurbian jelly slug in our standard routines. Vreen waved a dismissive appendage. Relax, my over-anxious friend. We'll just put them in the remedial class with the Gorlax. You know, the species that evolved in a gas giant and think gravity is a myth. Just then, the door to their office slid open with a hiss, revealing a human standing there. Both Zarlaxians froze, wondering if the human had overheard their less than flattering conversation. Hi there, the human said, flashing a toothy grin that made both aliens instinctively want to hide under their desks. I'm Jake, one of the new transfer students from Earth. I was told to come here for my physical education assessment. Zax and Vreen exchanged a look that screamed we're so screwed in at least 17 different alien languages. Of course, Vreen said, his voice an octave higher than usual. Welcome, Jake from Earth. We were just discussing the exciting new additions to our program. Jake's grin widened. Great. I've always loved sports. Back on Earth, I was on the wrestling team, did some parkour, a bit of ultramarathon running, you know, just to keep in shape. The Zarlaxian's eye stalks bulged simultaneously. Zax managed to regain his composure first. Well, that's impressive, but I'm sure you'll find our galactic physical education program quite different from what you're used to. Jake shrugged, a motion that fascinated the aliens. How did those shoulder joints not dislocate? I'm always up for a challenge. So where do we start? Vreen cleared his throat, which sounded like a garbage disposal trying to blend a mix of gravel and rubber ducks. Well, typically we begin with a simple warm-up. Just a light jog around the gravity flux arena. Sounds great, Jake said enthusiastically. Lead the way. As they made their way to the arena, Zax whispered to Vreen, the gravity flux arena. Are you insane? That's where we train the advanced Centaurian shock troopers. Vreen chittered back, relax. The human will take one look at it and probably faint. Then we can put him in the remedial class without hurting his feelings. Oh, how wrong they were. The gravity flux arena was a massive dome, its interior a swirling maelstrom of shifting gravitational fields. Platforms floated at various heights, some spinning, others phasing in and out of existence. Beams of energy crisscrossed the space, creating zones of intense gravity or near zero G. Jake's eyes lit up like a kid in a candy store. Whoa, this is awesome. It's like Super Mario Galaxy meets American Ninja Warrior. Zax and Vreen exchanged confused looks. They made a mental note to research these apparently terrifying Earth training programs later. Now, Jake Vreen began cautiously. The goal is simply to make it from this platform to the one on the far side of the arena. Don't worry if you can't. But Jake was already off, leaping from the starting platform with a whoop of joy. The aliens watched in horror as the human sailed through the air, twisting his body to slip between gravity beams. By the great cosmic jellyfish, Zax breathed, his exoskeleton turning a pale shade of disbelief. Jake hit a platform that immediately began to spin rapidly. Instead of being flung off as expected, he rolled with the motion, using the centrifugal force to launch himself towards a series of tiny, phasing platforms. Is he humming? Vreen asked incredulously. Indeed. As Jake bounced from one disappearing foothold to another, a jaunty tune could be heard echoing through the arena. It sounded suspiciously like I Want to Be the Very Best. Other alien students began to gather at the entrance, drawn by the spectacle. A group of Gorlax oozed in, their gelatinous bodies quivering in awe. What manner of being is that? One Gorlak gurgled. I think it's called a human, another replied. I heard they come from a mythical place called Earth where the gravity is so strong it would turn us into puddles. Jake, oblivious to his growing audience, was now in the zone. He swung from a series of anti-gravity rings, using them like some deranged space monkey. As he approached a section of intense gravity, he didn't slow down. Instead, he angled his body and, is he surfing the gravity well, Zack screeched. Indeed, Jake had somehow figured out how to ride the waves of gravitational force, using them to propel himself forward at even greater speeds. He shot through the heavy G-zone like a bullet, emerging on the other side with a backflip that would have made an Olympic gymnast weep with envy. The final obstacle was a massive void of 0G, stretching for what seemed like an impossible distance to the final platform. Jake paused at the edge, surveying the challenge before him. The aliens held their breath, those that had breath to hold anyway. Then, with a running start that made several Zarlaxians faint from the sheer speed, Jake launched himself into the void. He soared through the emptiness, his trajectory a perfect arc towards the finish. For a moment, it seemed he might fall short. But then, to everyone's amazement, Jake started swimming. Somehow, impossibly, he was propelling himself through the vacuum, using a butterfly stroke that would have made Michael Phelps proud. With a final surge, Jake reached out and grabbed the edge of the final platform, pulling himself up and striking a pose that wouldn't have been out of place on a cheesy 80s action movie poster. The arena erupted in alien cheers, whoops, and various species-specific sounds of amazement. Tentacles waved, antennae vibrated, and ooze bubbled enthusiastically. Jake jogged back to the stunned Zarlaxian instructors, barely out of breath. Wow, that was fun. Great warm-up. What's next? Zax's eye stalks had twisted themselves into a pretzel. Vreen's exoskeleton had cycled through so many colors he looked like a disco ball having an existential crisis. Next, Zax stammered. Yeah, I'm all warmed up now. Ready for the real workout. Jake bounced on his toes, looking expectantly at the aliens. Vreen finally found his voice, though it came out as more of a squeak. That was the advanced course. You just broke every record we had. Jake's face fell. Oh no, did I do something wrong? I didn't break any rules, did I? Rules? Zax laughed hysterically. There aren't supposed to be any rules because no one has ever actually completed the course before. The human's brow furrowed in confusion. Really? But it seemed pretty straightforward. Although I guess the gravity surfing part was a bit tricky at first. A small Gorlak oozed forward, its eye stalks trembling with excitement. Excuse me, Mr. Human, sir. Could you teach us how to move like that? Jake's face lit up. Of course. It's all about understanding your body's center of gravity and how to manipulate it. Here, let me show you a simple parkour roll. And so began the strangest physical education class in the history of the Galactic Academy. Jake, the accidental instructor, began teaching a motley crew of alien students everything from basic tumbling to advanced zero-G maneuvering techniques. The Gorlaks, inspired by Jake's fluid movements, learned to shape their gelatinous bodies into more efficient forms. Soon, they were bouncing and rolling through obstacle courses with surprising agility. A group of arachnoids, typically too afraid of falling to attempt any high-altitude challenges, was soon skittering across the ceiling of the arena, their 8 legs finding purchase where none seemed to exist. Even the gaseous Zephyrians, who usually drifted aimlessly on solar winds, learned to concentrate their vaporous forms to jet through tight spaces with precision. As for Zax and Vreen, they watched in a mixture of awe and existential dread as their carefully crafted, supposedly impossible obstacle course was reduced to little more than a playpen for increasingly confident alien students. We're going to lose our job, Zax moaned, his antennae drooping. Vreen, however, had a gleam in his eye stalks. No, my friend, we're going to revolutionize galactic physical education. Think about it, if we can train other species to even approach the capabilities of humans, we'll be hailed as visionaries. Zax considered this for a moment. You know, you might be right. But first we need to redesign this entire arena. It's clearly not challenging enough. As if on cue, Jake's voice rang out from somewhere near the ceiling. Hey guys, check this out. I think if we recalibrate the gravity flux generators, we can create a triple-axis spin zone. It'll be like trying to navigate the inside of a blender. The Zarlaxians looked at each other, then at the enthusiastic human hanging upside down from an anti-gravity ring, surrounded by a group of awestruck alien students attempting to mimic his position. On second thought, Vreen chittered, Maybe we should just let the human design the new course. Zax nodded fervently. Agreed. And then we'll find a nice quiet desk job, perhaps in the quantum physics department. I hear it's much less stressful. As they watched Jake demonstrate how to do a backflip in variable gravity, a move that made several arachnoids tie their legs in knots trying to replicate, both Sarlaxians knew one thing for certain: the Galactic Academy would never be the same again. In the days that followed, word spread quickly about the human who had conquered the impossible gym class. Students from all corners of the galaxy clamored to join Jake's impromptu training sessions. The Galactic Academy's administrators, initially skeptical, couldn't ignore the sudden surge in physical education enrollment. Jake, for his part, took it all in stride. He approached each new alien species with curiosity and enthusiasm, always finding innovative ways to adapt Earth exercises to wildly different physiologies. For the methane-breathing Jovians, he developed a series of gas current surfing techniques. The crystalline silicoids learned to vibrate at frequencies that allowed them to shatter gravity fields. Even the energy-based plasmons discovered they could arc through conductive obstacle courses with unprecedented speed and precision. The Academy's science department was in a frenzy, studying the effects of human-style training on various species. Reports of improved coordination, enhanced problem-solving skills, and even accelerated evolution in some short-lived species began to circulate in academic journals across the galaxy. Of course, not everyone was thrilled with these developments. The Galactic Olympic Committee was in uproar, frantically rewriting rulebooks and debating whether to create a separate post-human contact category for all future events. Meanwhile, back on Earth, news of Jake's interstellar gym class exploits had somehow made its way home. His old high school PE teacher, Mr. Johnson, was seen sobbing quietly in the equipment shed, muttering something about if only he'd known and wasted potential. As for Zax and Vreen, they did indeed find themselves with new job titles. The Galactic Academy, recognizing their role in inadvertently revolutionizing physical education, appointed them as interspecies adaptive training coordinators. Their main job: keeping up with Jake's ever more outrageous training ideas and ensuring the infirmary was always fully stocked. And so, what began as a bureaucratic oversight, the inclusion of a Deathworlder in a standard alien PE program, ended up changing the face of galactic physical fitness forever. Gym teachers across the universe would tell the legend for generations to come the day the human broke PE. In the grand tapestry of the cosmos, it was a small change. But for countless beings learning to push the limits of their physical forms, it was a revolution. All thanks to one human who looked at an impossible obstacle course and thought, "Hey, that looks fun." The universe, it seemed, would never underestimate the power of human athleticism or human insanity ever again. As Jake's unorthodox teaching methods gained popularity, the Galactic Academy found itself at the center of an interstellar media frenzy. News outlets from across the cosmos clamored for interviews with the human who had turned the concept of physical education on its head, or whatever passed for a head in their respective species. One particular morning, Jake found himself facing a floating array of cameras and microphones, each operated by a different alien species. The interview was being broadcast live across thousands of worlds. A gelatinous blob with eye stalks, apparently the lead journalist, oozed forward. "Jake of Earth, your methods have caused quite a stir. Some are calling it a revolution in galactic fitness. Others are claiming it's a human plot to dominate the universe through superior calisthenics. How do you respond?" Jake blinked, then burst out laughing. "Dominate the universe through jumping jacks. That's a new one. Look, I'm just a guy who enjoys staying active. If I can help others do the same, that's great. Although I have to admit, teaching a Florvexian how to do a cartwheel was pretty challenging. Did you know they have 17 legs and no concept of up?" The gathered aliens murmured in a mix of amusement and bewilderment. A tall, spindly creature with what appeared to be an abacus for a head clacked its beads thoughtfully before asking, "But surely you must have some greater purpose." "Our calculations show a 0.00000000001% chance that this is mere coincidence." Jake shrugged, a motion that still fascinated many of the aliens present. "Nope, no greater purpose. Unless you count trying to beat my own record on the gravity flux arena. I'm down to 2 minutes 17 seconds, by the way. Anyone want to try and top that?" The assembled journalists quickly backed away, some even retracting appendages they didn't want to risk losing in such an attempt. As the interview continued, back in the Academy's administrative offices, a heated debate was taking place. The Board of Galactic Education had convened an emergency meeting to discuss the human situation. Chancellor Zorblax, a being composed entirely of pulsating light, flickered agitatedly. "This is unprecedented. We've had to rewrite the entire physical education curriculum 12 times in the past month alone." Vice-Chancellor Crix, a hive mind of tiny insects forming a vaguely humanoid shape, buzzed in agreement. "Indeed. And the equipment budget. Do you know how much it costs to constantly repair obstacle courses rated for Deathworld conditions?" Professor Yurlak, a venerable Zarlaxian with impressively twisted eye stalks, cleared his throat. "Esteemed colleagues, while the costs are concerning, we cannot ignore the benefits. Species that have been part of the Academy for millennia are showing remarkable improvements in physical capability, problem-solving skills, and adaptability." Not to mention, interjected Dr. Quix, a quantum physicist who had recently transferred from a less stressful position in the P department. "The potential scientific breakthroughs. We're observing evolutionary leaps in real time. The Gorlaks have developed proto-bones. The Zephyrians can now maintain solid form for up to 7 minutes. This goes beyond mere physical education." Chancellor Zorblax's light dimmed thoughtfully. "You make compelling arguments. But what of the long-term implications? If we continue down this path, how will it change the balance of the galaxy?" A new voice chimed in, causing everyone to turn or ooze or flicker in surprise. "Perhaps that's exactly what the galaxy needs." Standing in the doorway was Ambassador Zora, representative of the Galactic Council. Her crystalline form shimmered as she entered the room, the gravity adjusting automatically to her dense physiology. Ambassador Zora Chancellor Zorblax brightened literally and figuratively. "We weren't expecting you. To what do we owe this honor?" Zora's facets rearranged into what passed for a smile among her kind. "The Council has been watching these developments with great interest. At first we were concerned. Humans have a reputation." The room filled with knowing murmurs. Humans' reputation as chaotic, adaptable, and surprisingly resilient beings was well known throughout the galaxy. However, Zora continued, "What we're seeing here is not dominance, but collaboration. This human Jake isn't conquering. He's teaching, inspiring, pushing the boundaries of what's possible for all species." She paused, her crystalline form refracting light in complex patterns that conveyed deep contemplation. "The galaxy is changing, my friends. New threats emerge from the dark spaces between stars. Old alliances shift like cosmic dust. Perhaps what we need is a little human chaos, a push to evolve, to adapt, to become more than we are." The room fell silent as the weight of her words sank in. Finally, Chancellor Zorblax spoke, his light pulsing softly. "What would you have us do, Ambassador?" Zora's crystal facets shifted again, this time into a configuration that radiated determination. "Expand the program. Not just physical education, but all aspects of human learning and innovation. Let's see just how far this human ingenuity can take us." And so, as Jake continued his enthusiastic and slightly crazy P lessons, unaware of the galactic implications, plans were set in motion that would change the face of the Academy forever. In the weeks that followed, more humans arrived at the Galactic Academy. They came as students, teachers, and researchers, each bringing their unique brand of earthly madness to the cosmos. Dr. Emily Chen, a quantum physicist with a penchant for parkour, began teaching a class called Schrodinger's Obstacle Course, where students had to navigate platforms that existed in probabilistic superpositions. Captain Oluwisi Oladipo, a retired astronaut, set up a zero-G culinary arts program. His signature dish, neutron star nuggets, became an instant hit, despite or perhaps because of the fact that it had to be eaten while spinning at 600 RPM to prevent it from collapsing into a singularity. Even in subjects less physically demanding, human influence began to show. Professor Jake Reedhawk's literature class, Intergalactic Poetry Slam, became legendary for its passionate debates. It wasn't uncommon to see Vulcanian lava poets engaged in fiery verse-offs with Neptunian ice sculptors, each trying to outdo the other in eloquence and elemental manipulation. But it wasn't just the humans teaching. As barriers broke down and species mingled in new ways, everyone began to learn from each other. The hive mind of Xi Shitara Prime taught invaluable lessons on consensus building and collective problem solving. The ancient chronomancers of Zygon shared their unique perspective on time management quite literally, as they experienced time non-linearly. Jake, meanwhile, had become something of a celebrity. He took it all in stride, continuing to approach each day with the same enthusiasm and slightly unhinged creativity that had started it all. One afternoon, as he was setting up for a new class he called Extreme Xenobiology Learning Anatomy Through Interpretive Dance, he was approached by Ambassador Sora Zora. "Ah, Jake of Earth," her crystalline voice chimed. "I've been hoping to speak with you." Jake grinned, wiping sweat from his brow. "Ambassador Zora, great to see you. Want to join the class? We're learning about Arcturian digestive systems today. It involves a lot of spinning and some very strange noises." Zora's facets shimmered in what might have been amusement. "Perhaps another time." "I wanted to thank you, Jake. You've done more for galactic unity in a few months than centuries of diplomacy ever achieved." Jake looked puzzled. "I have. I thought I was just teaching P and having fun." "Exactly," Zora replied. "Your fun has broken down barriers, challenged preconceptions, and inspired beings across the cosmos to push beyond their limits. You've shown us that diversity isn't just about coexistence, but about growth through collaboration." Jake rubbed the back of his neck, a bit embarrassed by the praise. "Wow, thanks. I'm just glad people are enjoying themselves. Though I have to admit I never thought I'd be teaching a gaseous collective how to do the Macarena." "That was interesting." Zora's crystal form vibrated with laughter. "The universe is full of surprises, Jake. Speaking of which, the Galactic Council has a proposition for you." And so, as a group of eager alien students began to arrive for their lesson in anatomy and interpretive dance, Jake found himself presented with a new challenge to help design a galactic exchange program that would bring beings from across the universe together in new and exciting ways. As he considered the offer, his eyes lit up with that familiar spark of chaotic inspiration. "You know," he said, a grin spreading across his face, "I've always wondered what would happen if we combined Zentabian zero-point energy manipulation with Earth breakdancing." Zora's facets rearranged into an expression of mixed excitement and trepidation. She had a feeling the galaxy was in for quite a ride. In the great cosmic dance of the universe, humanity had found its rhythm, and every species was learning to move to this new, unpredictable, but undeniably exhilarating beat. The Galactic Academy, once a staid institution of higher learning, had become a crucible of innovation, a melting pot of ideas where the impossible became merely improbable, and the improbable became Tuesday's homework assignment. And it all started with one human, one impossible gym class, and the unshakable belief that anything can be fun if you approach it with the right attitude, and a willingness to defy gravity, literal or metaphorical. As for Zax and Vreen, the two Zarlaxian P teachers who had inadvertently set this whole thing in motion, they eventually embraced their new roles as interspecies adaptive training coordinators with gusto. Their office, once a neon nightmare of motivational posters, was now a chaotic masterpiece of holographic training simulations, multi-dimensional workout plans, and an ever-growing collection of safety waivers for increasingly outrageous class ideas. Zax, his exoskeleton now permanently shimmering with an iridescent sheen from constant exposure to human-induced adrenaline, was often heard saying, "You know, I used to think a good day was when no one accidentally teleported themselves into a sun. Now, I measure success by how many laws of physics we bend before lunch." Vreen, whose eye stalks had developed the ability to operate independently due to the need to watch multiple dimensions simultaneously, would usually respond with his new catchphrase in Terran Terror, "Gym class breaks you." And so, as we zoom out from the Galactic Academy, past swirling nebulae and dancing stars, we're left with the image of a universe forever changed. A cosmos where the word impossible is treated less as a barrier and more as a dare. Where species separated by millions of light years and divergent evolutionary paths come together to learn, grow, and occasionally turn anti-gravity chambers into impromptu dance floors. All because one day humans decided to show up to gym class. In the great tapestry of the cosmos, it might seem like a small thread. But as any human physicist would tell you probably, while doing a handstand on a quantum fluctuation, even the smallest perturbation can lead to incredible changes. And who knows? Maybe one day, in the far future, when some advanced civilization looks back on the history of the galaxy, they'll point to this moment and say, that's when it all changed. That's when the universe learned to have fun. But for now, if you'll excuse me, I hear there's a new class starting at the Academy. Something about surfing tachyon waves while reciting Vogon poetry sounds like a perfectly normal Tuesday in the post-human contact galaxy. After all, in space, no one can hear you laugh. But that doesn't mean we can't try.